What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Marvel Legends custom. Today we're going to be working on making a Marvel Legends Sam Raimi Venom from Spider-Man 3. So of course we got to start off with the Marvel Legends Tobey Spider-Man. I had two of these and that's what kind of sparked this custom because I wanted to make this Venom as easy as possible, and this seemed like the best body to use for now. The head I have on my Spider-Man is a custom. This is the stock one. I'll have the link for that in the description. But to get him apart, of course, I heated him up and just slowly popped everything off. So usually for these shoulders, I can just stick a fork in that gap right there and pull it apart, but this guy was really together, so I had to hold off on getting that off until I got this chest piece apart. This is the old one I used, and you can see I drill holes in the sides here, and then I just usually can pry it apart after that. There's so many pegs in here glued together that it's very annoying to try to get this apart, and it's very hard to do without damaging it. So luckily I didn't need this chest piece anymore, so I could just go ahead and destroy this one to get it apart. So I'm using my drill and slowly put some holes in the sides here. And then I can use something kind of thin and very solid to try to pry it apart. Like I said, this process is very annoying. You just need to take your time and try not to damage any of the moving parts on the inside, because we'll need those later to get the kit together. I kind of tore up the butterfly joint a little bit here with the drilling while I was saying not to do that, but luckily this is going to be all hidden once I get it in the new torso, so it's not that big of a deal. I can finally get it apart, and you can see I've completely destroyed it trying to take it apart here. I just drilled holes, pried, and used my pliers to pull it apart. Next we're going to work on dyeing the body. I want to get a nice layer of black that isn't going to chip away when I go to paint, so I'm going to use this black synthetic dye. I boil the water, throw the pieces in there, dump in the dye, cut the water down to low, and I leave that in there for an hour. About every 10 or 15 minutes I'll come back and stir it, and then about half an hour into the dyeing process I'll go bend all the joints in the opposite direction, so that way everything's going to be dyed here and I won't have any blue or anything showing up later. Then you need to really wash these parts afterwards, so that way the dye doesn't stay kind of soaked in there and get on any other figures or anything. But you can see after I dyed that, I got a nice even black coat over everything. And if I do end up having some chipping or something, it'll just show the black plastic underneath rather than blue or red. I did forget to remove this back logo, so that's kind of my bad there. And also it makes the dyeing process easier if you remove all this paint first, but it's not 100% necessary since we're going to repaint it anyways. So I went back and sanded down that back logo, and I also took the sandpaper and sanded some of the areas where I think the paint could probably chip pretty easily. That way I can have a nice rough surface for the paint to stick to. I just used like 220 grit sandpaper here, or it's probably 300, but now I can actually hit all the pieces with this black paint. I like to use the air paint because it's thinner and comes out my airbrush a little bit easier. But after I get a nice couple of coats of that, I can hit it with the clear coat, and that's all the black pretty much done on the body. You can see here it's all nice and even, and there's no paint rub anywhere luckily on these legs. Especially with the drop down joint, you can avoid those parts rubbing all together. Now I'm gonna go ahead and snip these for the kit. My kit, you can't really have these being this long because there's not enough room in the body, so I just snipped that top mushroom peg off. I don't really understand why they do a double peg here. It kind of limits articulation too, but snipping that off shouldn't affect anything. It can still plug into these butterfly joints just as it did before, and it just gives you a little bit more room on the inside. Next part I'm going to trim up is this neck piece. My kit is sized for that kind of thicker rectangle there, so I have to snip off this kind of I don't know what you would call this kind of lip part here. I just snipped it away, and you can see here it has the bonus benefit of exposing that plastic, so when I go to super glue it later, that exposed plastic will stick better to the print. You can see once I snip that away, it fits into this kit perfectly and should look just stock like it did before. So this is the kit that I had designed. This is the first design I made, and it's just one solid piece. All you have to do to get it in this kit is shove it through that bottom hole right there. You don't even have to heat it up or anything. This just fits right through. And then you have that arm attached on there, and it still articulates just as much as before. But then you can snap this piece onto the legs, and then you can of course put the head on there like that, and it's ready to go and paint. This is definitely the easiest way to do this, and if you don't want to do any extra work sanding or anything like that, this is definitely an easier route. But the only problem is these arms are a little loose in there, so that's why I made this version 2, or this 2-piece set. And this one you have to sand down to get it to fit flush, and you have to glue it together. It does have the benefit of having more of a like a formed hole here for the actual arm joints to plug into. So you can see this one actually has an outline for that joint to fit into, and so you can just pop it in like this. And this 2-piece kit, these arms probably aren't ever gonna come out. They're gonna stay stuck in there, and so you don't have to worry about any kind of pose you get them into. It's gonna stay all held together. With the 1-piece kit, if you start moving the arms around too much, it could possibly pop out pretty easily. And so this one just is a better fit overall, but it is an extra little bit of work you have to do here to get it all together. But this is the finished one I had done initially, and you can see I use a 2-piece kit here. There is a little gap on the side and a little bit on the top, but those arms are in there permanently. Like, they're never gonna come out of there, and so you can pose this guy all around and not have to worry about anything falling apart here. So to get this kit prepared, I'm gonna use the 2-piece one for this this custom. And to get it ready, I'm just gonna go ahead and try to sand it flush so the 2 pieces will fit together more flush. And also this helps with the adhesion whenever you go to super glue these 2 parts together. Once you have like a textured surface on both from the sandpaper, it lets the super glue seep in a little bit better and stick better. So with my first kit I did this, and I haven't had any troubles of this thing coming apart at all. Once I sanded it all down, I painted it black, and I can go back and paint it with this steel color. I'm gonna paint it with this first so that logo looks nice and clean and all even with the airbrush. So once I got that all painted, you can see it turned out really well. Well, that logo, the body still needs to be repainted, but the logo turned out really well. And then I can go back with this black paint and just repaint the body. You wanna really take your time here so you don't mess up all that work you just did. And also make sure you water down this paint. I know it's already pretty thin because it's airbrush paint, but watering it down lets you have a little bit more control. And if you mess up, it's easier to clean up the watered down paint. So once I got kind of a broad stroke everywhere, I can take my more detailed brush and go in and paint these in between the legs here. This part is kind of annoying just because you have to really take your time, and I watered down the paint even more, so hopefully it flows in those gaps a little bit better. You mess up here, you can just wipe it away with your fingers, but it'll look fine in the end. And after I got all that done, I can use this clear coat to go ahead and seal all my work up so I don't have to worry about messing up that paint job later. Also, while I was doing all this, I did sculpt the bottom of this logo on the back. That way it lines up with the logo on the chest and it looks nice and uniform. You don't really have to do this, but I like to add the little detail. So after that, I can actually go ahead and try to put this kit together. So I tried to squeeze these pieces in, and you can see after I put on the front half, it wasn't fitting together perfectly. There was still a little bit of a gap there at the bottom. I just took a sharp X-Acto knife and cut away some of this material here so those pegs could fit in there a little bit more snugly. It is kind of just a touchy process here, trying to get everything to fit together really well without losing any of that stability. You can just keep trimming away at the inside there until you get something pretty close. And with 3D printed parts, you can always go and hit them with a hairdryer, and that makes them a little bit more malleable. So that way you can kind of bend it to look a little bit more flush if you need to. But I'm just gonna go ahead and apply super glue all over these areas where the 2 pieces are gonna connect. Also, before you do this, if you have paint all over these parts, you might want to go ahead and sand it a little bit just one more time, so that way you don't end up having paint where your super glue's going, because that'll make the adhesion a little bit weaker there. But I'm just going to hold these 2 pieces together and keep trying to squeeze. Since I sanded this, the glue is going to stick really quickly, so that's a overall positive here, that I don't have to sit here and hold on to this for minutes at a time. I can just go ahead and squeeze it together and it should stay together pretty easily. Next, I'm going to take this neck piece, and this has the added benefit of, since I trimmed away the edges there's some exposed plastic, so the glue is going to stick really well there, and I can just shove that in there and it should be good to go. So I'm going to let this guy dry for a little bit, and I'm going to work on the head now. So the head, I got this model off Colts 3D. I'll have the link below. But I'm The first version I did was a little bit big. If you're following me on Instagram, you could probably see the old pictures I did. Everybody was kind of roasting me for his big head, but I did size it down a little bit here, and it does fit better overall, I think. So we're gonna take that print though, we're gonna base coat it with this white, so I can just leave those eyes alone and they'll look clean in the end. But much like the body, I'm just gonna do a broad stroke of black everywhere that it needs to go, and then I'll come back with a more detailed brush after this and kind of touch up those spots that are a little bit harder to get to around the eyes and around the mouth. Once again, I used really watered down paint for this and just went around and did a few coats everywhere, just trying my hardest to follow the lines of the eyes and the mouth so I can get something nice and clean. After that, that's what he looked like, and I let that dry overnight, and then we can start working on the mouth after this. So the process with the mouth is kind of weird. I used pure red mixed with basic skin tone, and I just did multiple light coats, kind of changing the colors up here and there. So this initial coat, I went a little bit lighter than I wanted to with it, but I just went ahead and painted this all over the whole mouth to get a base coat of this one color over everything. And that way it also helps me kind of see where I need to work and where I need to add stuff to. You can see here I end up painting the teeth too. They were just annoying to try to paint around, so I'll just come back and paint those later. But after that, it was just a process of kind of adding more red in and watering it down and painting that on and seeing how that looks. And then maybe coming back and adding some more flesh color in and painting that on. It's really just kind of whatever you prefer. And I did use some darker reds at some point and maybe some black in there. Just kind of mixing colors together and putting on very, very light coat. That way I can just add some variety to the color in his mouth and make it look more natural. Especially with like a darker red, you want that to be really thin. You paint that on there and it's gonna add some detail to those recesses and all those gaps in there. But this is what I ended up with at the end. It could have been a little bit darker, but I was pretty happy with it. So for the teeth, I'm mixing white, these bony spikes, and just a little bit of yellow. And I'm gonna go ahead and brush that on all of the teeth and try to get just one consistent base color for all of the teeth. Just trying to paint each individual tooth while also mixing those gums. This process took forever, but it does really make this more exciting when you're actually seeing the whole thing come together. So this is after a few coats on the teeth. I also came back with a little bit of watered down black and added some color to those kind of tendrils around his mouth, just to add some details. But for the teeth, the last thing I'm gonna do is add this flesh wash. Now this flesh wash, of course, is watered down like all the paints I've been using, but this one's even further watered down because I didn't want this to ruin my paint job on the teeth. So I really wanted to do just one light coat of this over everything. That way, I didn't really know how this would react with the paint and how this would look when it dried. So I wanted to be really careful here. But I brushed just a coat over all of the teeth. Really don't want that wash to pool up anywhere, so I made sure to take a dry brush and kind of soak up some of that extra paint just to keep it from any places I didn't want it. But here's what it looked like at the end, and the teeth turned out great in my opinion. I really like them. But now we can go on to the very boring part of painting all of these web lines with a gloss paint. We're going a little bit back in time here before I glued the chest. I forgot that I had done these web lines before I glued everything, but here's what he looks like with the web lines painted and without them. So I think the gloss coat really helps add some detail to the body. So I just took a really thin brush and a little bit of that gloss paint and went and painted over every single web line. This took forever, especially with some of the harder to reach places, but I definitely think it adds enough detail that it was worth it in the end here. But you can see that's what it's already looking like just with a few painted. Also took that gloss coat and painted the mouth and the teeth just to add some more detail to those and make them really shiny and look like they're wet, and the inside of his mouth is wet. And here's what he looks like with the gloss coat and without. You can see it's not a major difference, but I think it definitely adds something there. And then lastly for the eyes, I'm gonna add some of this UV resin, and it's gonna help add a layer of just like making it look more like lenses. I know they're not lenses, they're his actual eyes, but this helps add some reflectiveness to the eyes to make them look even more gnarly. You can cure that though with this UV lamp. I got this lamp on Amazon and the resin on Amazon, and I've had it forever. So this is something I whip out for visors and eyes and stuff like that to make them really pop. But here he is compared to the other head that I haven't done this to yet. And you can see it's not a major detail here, but in person it definitely stands out and makes it look more natural. And once I stick this chest onto there, that's pretty much it. This guy's all done. I didn't paint the hands on camera, but it was just more of the same. Paint them black, do the gloss coat, but everything else is done so we can show some shots of this guy. But this guy was really fun to work on. I guess so fun that I did it twice. But some of these photos, or some of these videos, the first, I think 3 are big head Venom, so if he looks a little weird, just know I fixed him in the most recent update. I do have some more big head Venom heads. I painted up like 4, I don't know why I did that, but I do have 2 left, so if you want to buy the big head Venom, the head fits better on like Renew Your Vows Spider-Man body, something about that size. It looks pretty good. So message me on Instagram if you want that. And I also have that custom Spider-Man head that I don't really need anymore. If you want to buy that, I'm also selling the printed kits of Venom, so message me if you want that. I'll have the files linked below for your own 3D prints. But anyways, thanks for watching. Sorry about all the ads, I guess. Hope you guys liked it, and let me know what you think of him down in the comments. I think that's about it for me. Check the description for all the links. I guess I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.